What is up, guys? Fadeaway82, proud to bring you another edition of A Day in Rust. I really hope you guys enjoy this series. It takes a hell of a long time to edit these together, but as always, A Day in Rust simulates a day cycle in Rust, and I spectate players back to back and condense down a day cycle so you can see kind of the madness, the chaos, the beauty that is Rust. We're going to get the fuck out of that first scene because we certainly don't want to mess with the Italian and Russian Mafia combined. And moving into our first vignette, we have an early morning raid going on here, which is a cave-based raid. The raiders have burrowed their way, probably during the night, into this cave, and the defenders are locked down on the bottom floor here. The defenders are doing the best they can to defend against this raid, but the raiders have overtaken most of the hallways and access points to this base. So the defenders are locked in their loot rooms. They're trying to hold them down with the best of their ability. What's sealing their fate here is a tool cabinet. This is both problematic for the raiders and the defenders. That tool cabinet that you guys can see in the picture there, when that door is open, the defenders can't get into that room and the raiders... the defenders can't get out of that room and the raiders can't get in there. So that tool cabinet will have to be destroyed if that wants to be a place that the defenders want to get out of or if the raiders want to get into. I really love that shot there that shows the two sides, the raiders and the defenders, almost in the same frame there, which is really cool. So as you guys can see here, the defenders have two choices here. They can try to move through that tool cabinet, which means you're going to have to destroy it, or they can come out of this hallway here. They are going to bring a flamethrower out to play here, which I was really excited to see. I was hoping it would turn into a fiery cave ball, a fireball cave, or some fiery raid, which could have been an awesome little raid cam, but that wasn't necessarily the case, but still was very enjoyable. They decided to make the play to go for the angle of going for that tool cabinet. They set a standing fire, which is on the ground there, but as the door was open, the raiders had a great vantage point. They were wedged on top of that tool cabinet and between a rock and were able to just effectively take out the defenders shot after shot here. I thought it was about over at this point with the last of the loot rooms being compromised, but an MLG level play is made here. One of the defenders pops up out of a sleeping bag, and in the seconds that he has to live, he closes that door, which is the only thing that he needed to do. Perhaps close the other door would have been a perfect play, but this was an awesome play that we don't often see. It happened so quickly, and it makes it all the more pronounced because that tool cabinet broke down almost the same second that that door was closed. So that door was closed absolutely at the last second before that loot room was compromised. So the defenders are still kicking here. They're fighting tooth and nail with the raiders, and this was a really intense raid cam to watch, guys, and I hope it translates in the footage. But as this is a day in Rust, we're gonna have to move out as we take a look at the flames here, and those flamethrowers are used very effectively to take out deployable items and also bodies. So notice those bodies burning up with the flames, all that loot dropping to the ground. What that does for the raiders is it allows the defenders not to spawn back in and pick up gear. Also takes away their spawn points because there were some sleeping bags on the ground there. Alright guys, we're going to pan out here and move into our next scene. As we come upon some players who are moving through the landscape, they're taking the long way around and their destination is unknown. The players may have a destination in mind, or they may just be walking aimlessly around the landscape, but they're certainly not taking easy terrain. They're going up over a high snowy mountain peak, and when you're traversing this landscape in Rust, you need to dress appropriately, so you need to have the right attire. You also need to bring food and occasionally stop down and throw down a campfire. The snow biome and the top of these mountain peaks are brutal environments to live in and survive in, so these players are well geared for the journey because they're clothed correctly and they probably have enough supplies because they're not stopping to put down a campfire and cook food. They came up over the mountain peak and down into a valley. They stopped to take note of some action that was going on ahead. When you guys are moving around the Rust landscape, if you're playing on a vanilla server with an open PvP environment, you always want to be aware of what's going on, and these players spotted some action going on ahead. What was occurring ahead looks like some type of a raid here with a player who also lived in a rock, and one of the raiders was stuck in one of the lower levels of the base, and Jeb's the base owner here. His furnaces are still kicking. He's probably trying to build up, gather enough resources to secure his base a little bit more. But what I love about this scene is the intersection of the group coming off the mountains and the group that was already at this base raiding it. They come together here in this absolutely brilliant display of gunfire, very intense mid-early game footage, and Jebs opens up the door. He doesn't know who the hell he's shooting at. He might be shooting at one of the guys who is saving his ass, or potentially saving his ass, because they could have always killed the raiders and then just picked up where they left off. But Jebs is doing just what he needs to do, defend his base. Anything that moves, kill it. He looks like he's a solo player. He's very good with his AK as he comes out of the base here. A random naked gets in the melee here with a rock. and players are using the bushes to the best of their ability rather, to use it as cover and a way to heal. And Bim Bam is also lighting up the landscape, chopping mofos down with his AK. The last two men standing here are Bim Bam and Jebs. And you'll notice that as Jebs comes out of his base, there's a nice exchange of gunfire here. We're not really sure who's going to go down, but Jebs is the one who goes down along with that Twig Foundation. Now guys, we're going to go ahead and move out of this vignette, move over into the next one. As we go ahead and pan out here, take note that at any given time in Rust, these things are occurring almost simultaneously. These players were spectated back to back, so this is really the madness of a Rust server. Now we're taking a brief look at the players with a base here that says good morning. Chances are it won't be a good morning if you visit this base. Like saying friendly in Rust, that's something that you always might want to take with a grain of salt. We're going to go ahead and move on over to the next scene, which is a hard one to watch for a lot of players, but it is some players burning their way into a very small 1x1. The raiders have to wait for the flames to die out before they can bust into this loot-packed shack and raid that large chest. Notice that as Oakshield is taking the items he wants, he's also despawning what is not of value for him. It is what it is, guys, and we are observing players back to back. Perhaps Lord Oakshield doesn't deserve the title of Lord, or perhaps he's a Dark Lord and does indeed deserve that title. It's not for us to judge. It is what it is, and it is player behavior. Moving on over here, we're taking a look at some players who are rolling out into their desert compound. It's a cave base that has not yet been compromised, so they still have that cave hole intact, unlike the players in the first part of this video. The northern biome is very difficult to live in, as we can see from this large compound here with withered corn. So this is going to be a place that's going to be both difficult to survive in and also to raid in, but these players are thriving. They've put a lot of work into it, and they have a very self-sustained compound here with food sources. And as we pan out over here, we ended up spectating the players again in the cave. It looked as though the raid was over. They were left with nothing but their dicks in their hands. They were stripped of all their loot. It looks like they had not even an axe, a stone axe to their name. And we moved on over from that to look at some players who were very well harmonized with their environment. The feng shui was going on in this scene, and I really loved how the base was put into the landscape, and the river complemented it almost very naturally, surrounding it, giving it a natural layer of protection. You can't shoot when you're in a river, guys, so even though it looks like a small river, it actually makes that base a very defensible point of land. The base itself isn't going to be necessarily a difficult one to raid, but I love this for the environment. I thought it was very beautiful. I liked the aesthetic of it, and I also liked the players inside there. They seemed like they were having a very fun time with it. So as we go ahead and move out, we noticed a murder that happened in the forest. A player chased another player down with a hatchet. We can't judge this action, just like we can't judge Lord Oakshield's, because we don't know what led up to it. We don't know the interaction between those players. So it could have just been a murder in the forest, as often happens in Rust, or there could have been some type of story behind that where that gentleman who got hatcheted to death had provoked the other player. Who knows? But it is what it is. And this scene that we're looking at here is a winter. Again, the winter biome. It's a compound where some players were very concerned with some action that was going on in the forest ahead. Again, it involved a cave. This seemed to be the motif for this episode of A Day in Rust, but there was a bit of a skirmish going on. I'm unclear as to whose side the players were on, but we ended that vignette and also stayed in the winter biome, looking at a player who also was harvesting resources. He was about to be murdered by a group of players, but he led them on a chase into some rocks. What's interesting here is that the raiders went towards a base that they thought that individual went to, and there were furnaces kicking, so there was activity at this base. It was a hot base, but they were actually at the wrong base. The gentleman who had run away from this group was using furnaces as well, but he was at a base that was down the coast and in the water, and it wasn't this particular location. So I found that very interesting. He was able to lose the raiders in the rocks, and that's always a fun aspect of Rust, is just that randomness of how things go down. Alright guys, as we go ahead and wind this down, again I wanted to say I really hope you enjoy the Day in Rust series. I put together a playlist for the series because we're about 7 episodes in, so if you want to watch more of the episodes, you can look at the playlist. It'll be linked in the description below. The series is one that's hard to edit because editing free cam footage is like splicing together old film, but it is a series that's very agile with the type of editing, so I can show a lot in a video. I can show you a lot of different players interacting in a very short period of time, and it does take a while to spectate all these players, but when I condense it down, I feel like it has a lot of value. Again, let me know, guys, what you think of the series. As always, I can tweak it here and there, but in general, this will be the format for it. As always, guys, thank you so much. Peace out.